right, Saagar, what's on your radar?
Well, as Crystal has covered, the Iowa Democratic Party somehow managed to bungle the process even more yesterday in a mind-boggling show of incompetence that is nearly impossible not to look at and wonder whether there was some intentionality to it. But this disproportionately affects Bernie Sanders and Pete Buttigieg. It has not stopped the true loser of the Iowa caucuses from also trying to get in on the action. Joe Biden spokeswoman Simone Sanders went on CNN yesterday and outright refused to say that she believes the data coming out of Iowa is correct.
Yes, I am asking, and this was my question, do you believe the numbers that you see coming in right now are correct?
And Brianna, what I am saying is we have asked the Iowa Democratic Party to check again, and triple check.
Those numbers coming in are correct according
to you all know.
The partial data is correct, they
in.
say. Do you not believe them?
Well, I guess we'll have to take the Iowa Democratic Party at their word, Brianna. But again, we're moving forward, and the questions that we have raised are frankly legitimate questions.
Now, look, there's certainly reason to doubt some of the results coming out of Iowa, but that just shows that doubt doesn't just hurt Bernie and Buttigieg. It hurts the media's ability to tell us the truth, that Joe Biden suffered a catastrophic loss of epic proportions in Iowa. At the time of this writing, 97% of the votes have come in from Iowa. But in terms of popular vote totals, he got literally half what both Bernie and Buttigieg were able to muster, and only a few thousand more votes than Amy Klobuchar. Below the obfuscations of Simone Sanders and an impeachment state of the union obsessed media are lurking signs that the political implosion I've predicted for Biden is coming true. The former vice president sacked his Iowa field director. The leaks have already begun from within the team to the New York Times that blame everybody but himself. If you'll recall the Iowa Democratic Party dinner back in November, Biden basically had no cheering or support at an event that was flooded by Buttigieg, Warren, and Bernie supporters. The former vice president apparently blew up at his campaign chairman, told them to step up their game, but by that time, it was too late. I encourage you all to go and actually read the article, which displays how much of a disaster it was from a purely organizational perspective. Above all else, though, what sticks out to me is this quote. His core pitch about electability and experience wasn't enough to persuade voters who wanted a fresh face or more boldly progressive ideas. Ultimately, organization, endorsements, the professional apparatus is all just window dressing to the fact that Biden's ideas lack potency because he doesn't have any ideas. It isn't undergirded by a serious argument as to how we move forward as a country. And I'm a broken record on this, but it's insane that the former vice president of the United States underperformed his polls by nearly 6 to 7 points, and that we're not all talking about it day in and day out. It is one of the greatest failures in modern American politics, and it portends a Jeb Bush-style cratering in New Hampshire in the days to come. You can already see it with the flailing, pathetic attacks. Biden opened fire against Buttigieg, who it appears is consolidating a lot of his non-viable votes that he had in Iowa, saying, quote, Mayor Pete likes to call me part of the old failed Washington. Was it a failure when I helped pass Obamacare, the Paris Agreement, the Violence Against Women Act, or the assault weapons ban? I have a stronger record of passing big, progressive legislation than anyone running. Let's leave aside the fact that the Paris Accords didn't need congressional approval. It's utterly humiliating that a former U.S. senator and former vice president of 40 years has to squabble with a small-town, do-nothing former mayor who beat him in the Iowa caucuses. Iowa voters had more confidence in Buttigieg than a guy who has supposedly been on the front lines of big change for 40 years. That's how far that he's fallen in American politics, and I predict much, much worse is to come for him. And that's the thing, Crystal. You underperform your polls by 6 to 7 points. It just shows how massively that the entire media, that Biden himself, Democratic establishment has misjudged the Democratic electorate. It's exactly the same as 2016. They don't understand their base. They don't fight for the interests of their base. And now you have other candidates who actually do and are starting to surge.
Well, and you saw this narrative, this whole cycle, which has, as all these things do, has a grain of truth that Twitter isn't real life. With the implication being that, okay, you may not see his supporters. It's very much like the Hillary Clinton argument versus Trump.
Right.
You may not see his supporters. They may not be as vocal. They may not be as, activisty or extremely online, et cetera, but they're there. And we trust us. They're really there. And so we'd look at these lackluster events where you can barely fill a middle school gymnasium while other candidates have thousands of people, or at the Liberty and Justice event where his sections of the stands were basically empty, and you go, really? Are they really there? Yes, we promise you they're going to be there. And at the same time, and you pointed to this as well, Biden got basically every key endorsement in Iowa, like the most critical ones, Vilsack, these two new DCCC-backed freshman members of Congress, Cindy Axne and Abby Finkenauer. These were really highly sought after. Right. And he had the whole road show of his old buddies from John Kerry and all those people. Kerry caught on the phone,
floating whether
he should jump in the But none of that mattered because people don't care what the gatekeepers have to say anymore.
Because they don't have faith in them. And that's what happened in 2016 is it revealed that people don't have faith, and people have almost no faith in the actual traditional party infrastructure. And then more and more and more. I mean, look, even under Trump, if I was a Democrat, I would be furious because what happened? Did we address any, the structural things in which Barack Obama was bested by Donald Trump effectively and with Hillary Clinton? No. What they did is they impeach, focus on all this complete BS. The only election that they won was because they focused on health care, on an actual substantive issue. And you know what? They haven't done any of that, mostly, by in large part, for the last 3 years. And so why should they have faith? The Democratic base is look, 6 out of the 10 people who went to the Iowa caucuses said that they supported Medicare for all. I was talking about this morning, and it was how do you possibly be a Joe Biden type candidate, right? And you're like, oh, this is ridiculous, it's radical. You don't even agree. 60% of the Iowa electorate flat out disagrees with you.
And that's after so much money spent attacking Medicare for all, industry talking points, every debate framed from a right-wing pro-industry perspective on that. I mean, just wrap your head around the fact, we're going to probably find out this morning who won the state delegate equivalents, whatever, but it is 100% clear a Democratic socialist just got the most votes in Iowa.
Yeah.
I mean, wrap your head around that. That is a wild state of affairs that the Democratic establishment and the media still hasn't grappled with. And we're going to talk about this more later, but to give you a sense of how quickly the bottom has fallen out of Joe Biden's campaign. Right now, Nate Silver, Bernie Sanders booster, in his modeling and projection, he has Bernie Sanders winning every single Super Tuesday and early state, save for 2, South Carolina and Alabama, where he is essentially tied with Joe Biden in terms of the projections. That is how quickly this thing has evaporated. When I was on CNN this morning, even they had to say Bernie Sanders is the new frontrunner.
Right.
So that's where we are.
Yeah. And here's the thing. It makes perfect sense to us. We tracked it, for a long time. It's kind of ethos
we're not surprised.
Of this whole thing. But watching them deal with it, they're not ready. And you're going to see, just like Jeb, Ted Marco, all of these are creations. They're not real. There's not real people behind them. But on this time around, you're going to see the same thing with Biden, and it's going to be the sad end to a long career.
Indeed. Yeah. All right, coming up, senior Bernie Sanders advisor Chuck Rocha. He's going to give us some specifics on where we are with the Iowa caucus results, what's still out there, what we can expect going forward, all that after this.